Welcome to this presentation. So why did we decide to do grade 4 and 5 together? Because the instruction model from grade 3 to grade 4 and 5 is going to switch. Grade 4 and 5 have the same instruction model, meaning on a weekly basis, we have a French week and an English week in grade 4 and grade 5. Grade 4 and grade 5 are also part of the same cycle. In the French program, we have the cycle 3, starting in grade 4, which does grade 4, 5, and 6. So the 3 grades are part of the same cycle. And basically, a student has 3 years to learn all the skills from these grades. So that's the reason why in grade 5, 4, and 5, we usually speak about kind of same grade level. Of course, we dive in more in grade 5 and we do more things related to social studies, for example, or math, or even reading. But the main architecture of the learning is the same. So I think that it's really exciting to be here at EB in these years. We have a new strategic plan that we unveiled last year, and we are working this year on the new values: unity, reflection, integrity, endeavor, and zeal. We have each month, we tackle a value. We try to really do activities and work in our LCL program, but also in the classes around the values, so which is very important for us. We have this year the new STEM program. So STEM, it's not STEAM, it's science, technology, engineering, and math. We don't have the art yet. Next year we'll incorporate the art. So with a new specialist, new STEM specialist, Isabelle Leblanc. So she teaches the new robotic curriculum that we unveiled last year. So kind of going forward on that. On a side note, for example, we signed up a 5th grade team of students for the Legal League project, and they ride 2nd place. So part of it, thanks to our new robotic curriculum, but also because we try to really incorporate this computational thinking. Last year, we have also new curriculum guidelines, and these new curriculum guidelines help us to harmonize also with a common core. So we really focus on harmonizing a lot our both curriculum, the French and the American one. We have innovative pedagogical approaches. This year, focus for our faculty was differentiation. So we did a lot of workshops. We sent them to professional development. And we do all year round different activities with our staff and faculty to really create differentiated approach, differentiated teaching for all our students. Students in need, but also students that have high expectation and that we can push forward also. And we have a dedicated, dynamic, and very experienced team of teachers, and they are really the core of what EB is, and I wanted to kind of say a word to them, because EB is also about them and what they deliver every day. So, let's talk about the child development between 9 and 10 years old, so G4, G5. Physically, they are going to grow, and they also are very active. They kind of really want to be in this energy mood, and they need frequent breaks from tasks. The early maturers, the ones who are really growing fast and faster than the other ones, might be upset about their size, so it's something to take into account. They start really excelling at sports, and sports, it comes also with competition. This competition mindset starts to rise, and this is where we are going to help them with our social emotional learning. So they can be very competitive, they are choosy about their friends, so sometimes when they have friends, well, they stay with them, it's kind of a clique. And when there is issues that arise within the group, it's really difficult for them to handle the situation. This is also where we work a lot with our LCL program, because the acceptance by friends is very important for them. So they're often, being part of a group is something that they need to grow and really to become a nice teenager. They often idolize heroes, television, and sport figures, so this is important for them. On the cognitive aspect, they are eager to answer questions, they are very curious. and they try to understand their world. So they question a lot. They ask a lot of questions around the world, and even when they try to learn something, they question why, even, for example, a sentence in problem solving, they try to think, okay, but why are we asking that? And it's always about understanding their world. They are capable of making relationships between learning concepts, and this is where we are going to use their cognitive growth as part of our learning program. So we can make links, we can bridge the two languages together. They start expressing original ideas, and these ideas, it will be put into motion in their writings. We'll have the narrative writings that will come up, but also the argumentative, and we will write a lot in G4 and G5. So the argumentative language rises, and they understand abstract concept, because in grade 3 they worked a lot. So grade 3 was part of it was the end of cycle 2, so grade 1 and grade 2. And in grade 3, it's mostly the preparation for the upper grade, so grade 4 and grade 5. So we try to work around also, the abstraction, but we still have some tools to help them understand the thing, so some concrete. Now in grade 4 and 5, we really go towards the abstraction, and it's really part of the program and what we do. And emotionally, they can be inflexible about their idea of fairness. So what is fair for them sometimes is really their own perspective. They want to be more independent, but they know that they need guidance and support. So it's the right balance between independence and also the need of the adults and the need of the group being part of a group. And mostly for grade 5, preteens, so behavior can change as early as 4th grade, can see some kind of maturity, sometimes immaturity in their relation and their emotions. So they are sometimes overwhelmed by their emotions. So there is a lot of work to do around that also. Okay, so transition from grade 3 to grade 4 and grade 4 to grade 5. So the oral language, usually in grade 3, they master the narrative language in both languages, French and English. Reading, they are fluent readers in both languages, and they can understand really complex text, and the vocabulary has increased, and they can really understand more challenged words, and even the meaning under some types of text, the irony, they can feel it, they can really understand it. The writings, most of them can write a short text, and the ideas also have increased, and they have more and more ideas they want to write, they want to really write a lot, and that's where the teachers try to focus them and guide them in their writing process. Sometimes they have ideas, they want to go in every direction, and the teachers try to regroup them and to focus on one idea. But the writing piece and the writing process is really important in our teaching. For the math, the foundation is here, so it's solid. They have benefited from the bilingual approach, from the Eureka Math that in grade 3 and 4 they are doing. So Eureka Math, as you know and as you experience as parents, it's really harmonizing the math curriculum in French and in English, regardless if it's a common core or the French guidelines, the French standards. And we try to learn a concept in a language that usually they are fluent, they are really at ease with, and then we dive into the concept bilingually. So it's really important for them. The master of all operations will come by the end of end of 3rd grade. They can understand difficult programs and also the different steps that when you solve the problem, it's very important. So we try to teach them how to solve it, and with the steps and the drawing also. So still the concrete to abstract is an important piece. They have a deep sense of the meaning of the operation, and in grade 3 and even in grade 4, we try to give them the sense of what does it mean to divide, to add, or to multiply. The multiplication is not something that we want to learn by heart. And I'm sure that you have noticed that they don't learn the multiplication tables by heart. We really have the multiplication tables as a construction of their knowledge. And we try different ways. so that they have a sense of, okay, what does it mean, 3 times 3, 4 times 9, and we play with the numbers, we play with the problem solving, because everything is done in solving problems. So it's really important that they understand the meaning, and it's not just something learned by heart. They're ready for the use of fractions, so the fraction models, it will come soon, and they are ready to use it. Usually the fractions come earlier in the American program than the French program, so we harmonized it, and it will come soon. Why? Because the fractions in the American system, it's really everywhere. When you read the signs on the road, it's half a quarter, you have the exit. At half a mile, you have another exit. In French, we don't use that. So they are really, when they are here, they really get a sense of what it means. And so we try to use that knowledge, that trial knowledge, to dive in the fractions. Okay, G4 and G5. So what will change from G3? Basically, they will have, so as I said, an instructional model of 1 week, 1 week. So they will have French and language arts, of course, in each week. They will have arts, bilingual, balanced literacy approach. Same thing as in grade 3 and even grade 1 and 2. Math, there will still be Eureka Math. So we are delivering a whole curriculum from grade 3 to grade 5 with the Eureka Math. And we supplement it by different aspects like the ZERN, the enrichment website, or also different problems. We do the problem of the day, something like that, which we started just, I think, a few weeks ago, a kind of math club, which is we want to move forward some students and try to have them go beyond what they are capable of doing. So we try to emphasize also on that. They will still have PE, social studies, social emotional learning. So art and science next year will become STEAM. So we will, this year also we'll have maker project, but next year we'll do more around the maker movement and different aspects of the science. This year, the emphasis is on the scientific method. So when we have a problem, we try to have the different steps of a scientific method. So how we can solve the problem. It's kind of the engineering approach. Like what has been done, what can we create, what kind of solution do I come up with, and is it a good solution? And we are making links with the middle school as early as G4. We have, for example, a meeting, a council called the Conseil École Collège, in which we have G4, G5, and G6 teachers. We meet 3 times a year, and we discuss about harmonization around the curriculum. We discuss also about how we teach things, so the pedagogical thing, how we teach math in 6th grade is not how we teach math in 4th grade. So we try to kind of reduce the gap that we can have between a 5th graders and a 6th grader, and by harmonizing our approach, but also the teacher, we think that it will have an impact on the difference between 5th and 6th. And middle school, we have also the Maker Fair. We try also to have this link together, and we have also other students that come in the classroom, even in grade 3. To read and to help the students with their reading. So being part of the whole community, EB, it's the lower school and the middle school, and in grade 4 and 5, the link is getting better. So the difference. So even if it's 1 week, we cannot say that it's 50%, because some of the specialist subjects are taught in French. So science is in French, art is in French, music is in French, LCL is in English, but PE is in French. So the load of the subject in French and the subject in English is different. So it's not 50-50, it's 55-45. And of course, if you are here, I don't have to convince you about the benefits of being bilingual. All the research and studies, the multitasking, the different perspective that a child can have on a problem. Especially our French standards, our French program is really focused on getting the different perspectives. So you can have the perspective of a scientist, you have the perspective of a philosopher, you have the perspective of a mathematician. But in the French program, we try to really have all these perspectives and how a problem can be solved. It's really something specific about the French program. So being bilingual and is a gift, so I think they should thank you for that. So 4th grade, so this is, for example, a 4th grade math. So they are using the division, and it's the model bar. And Maggie maybe will talk to you about that. You want to talk about the math, so then it's the math and the balanced literacy program.
Sure.
Thank you, Maggie. So everybody knows Maggie. Maggie Schoon, our English program coordinator and instructional coach.
Yeah, so as the instructional coach, I work with the French and the English teachers at the school, and it's provided me the opportunity to do a lot of the harmonization that Sébastien has mentioned so far in the presentation. So what we're trying to do is not make what the French teacher is teaching totally separate from what the English teacher is teaching. That they really work together on the same concepts at the same times, and that there's a give and take between how they're introduced and how they're applied in the other language. So one of the ways that we do this is through the Singapore approach to math. So we went through a 3-year pilot where we looked at the Singapore approach. It's very well known internationally as a very strong math program. And one of the reasons why is these bar models that you see in use on the screen. There's all different kinds of bar models. There's ones we use for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and fraction work. And they really give students a visual representation of what they're doing with the math. And it helps them solve problems, because when you have a word problem and you're trying to figure out what kind of operation you need to solve it, the visualization of putting the bar models together can really be helpful to students. So that part of the Singapore approach we adopted. Also teaching units to mastery, the focus on concepts that Sébastien mentioned. And of course, fluency is still an important piece. So math fluency is just being able to work with numbers and know your addition and multiplication facts, things like that. To help with the math approach, we have in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade the Eureka program, which they do bilingually in French and in English. We also have Zern, which is an enrichment site that you may be using at home, or if you're not yet, then definitely give it a try, because it aligns very closely with all the lessons they're learning in class. And it also has a teaching component. So students can use it to review lessons that they've already seen with their teacher, or preview lessons that they haven't seen yet. And it's a nice accompaniment to the math instruction they're receiving in class. Before I talk about balanced literacy, are there any questions about math specifically?
We can't look at
Yeah,
I tried yesterday and I went, what is that? So I learned the French way and I'm just lost. So
I'm actually glad that you mentioned that, because you know how I mentioned the Zern website, and in Zern they have their own account, and so they do a lesson and then they unlock a lesson and they go to the next lesson. So their individual accounts may not be exactly where the teacher is. Some teachers really try to keep kids very closely to where they are, but some kids maybe don't use it as much at home, and so they might be behind where the teacher is, or they might be ahead of the teacher. So something that I'm rolling out that I've shown a few families, but I want to roll out to everyone, is I've created a Zern account that's kind of like a mock account, where you could go to Zern and click on any lesson. So say this comes home, because this is, I know, what they're doing in 4th grade right now, because I helped the guest teacher the other day. And this was another thing about Zern. We had a guest teacher come. Sometimes it's hard for our substitute teachers to dive into the math curriculum, when they haven't been teaching all the steps up to that point. They have a teacher's guide, but they also use Zern in the classroom. So the way that the mock Zern account works, and I'm going to send an email to all of our current families with all this information, is that you can go straight to the Zern website, separate from your child's individual account. You can click on the grade, the module, which is like the unit, and the lesson. And so say they come home and their paper says that this is lesson, we don't see on the top of it, but say their paper says this is module 3, lesson 15. You can click on it, and on the green bar, there'll be like a 7-minute video with the person teaching the lesson in English. It can help you as parents kind of understand what they're getting at and where they're going and what kind of process they want the students to use, and it can also help your student to be able to have basically a teacher in their house that is reteaching what their teacher explained in class. Or again, like I said, sometimes I've kind of experimented using that as a preview, you know, for students that maybe have a little bit of math anxiety or trouble in math, or they want some extra support. Sometimes they could look at that short little video the night before their teacher teaches it in class. Say they're not as strong in French as they are in English, you know, this could be a good resource. And so that's why we really like this website, and I want to, you know, develop more tools to address just what you talked about, because obviously some of this work sometimes seems more complicated than it needs to be. You know, you just want to teach them the algorithm for multiplication and that's it. But what we find with the research and also, you know, what's come out of Singapore and other countries around the world, including France, some of the Singapore methodology is based on researchers from all over the world in mathematics. But what we find is that memorization can help in the short term, but it doesn't necessarily help them in the long term. And so if we want students to have the possibility to do advanced math and to do calculus and to move into math and science and engineering fields, we really want to set them up with a really good base of the concepts. So even though it seems sometimes more complicated, we teach them a lot of different strategies, and then ultimately we do let them choose their own strategies. But the strategies themselves help them get a deeper understanding of the math concepts behind it. In 5th grade, for example, you know, I learned in school that to divide a fraction, you flip around the fraction and then you multiply it. Never knew why that was the case. I just memorized that and moved on. When I saw how they explain it in 5th grade, I literally had like an aha moment. Oh my gosh, that is mind-blowing, and that's why it works. So I really do believe in this approach, and so that's why I always kind of give that speech when the parents are like, "This is too complicated." Yeah.
Oh, I was just curious. So are the children using Zern at school at all, or is that 100%?
That's a great question. That's a great question. A lot of teachers do use Zern at school, but depending on the teacher and the grade level, the time usage at school could vary. So some teachers have an option as in carpool. Some teachers have it an option, like they might do math groups one day, so they'll take a small group. One group will do Zern, one group will do a math game. It can sometimes be an option when they're finished with other work. So it kind of varies, but we do try to at least provide some time, you know, during the week for students to use Zern, if nothing else, but just to get them familiar with it, so that way when they get home, they'll want to do it or know how to do it and know how to go through the steps. Yes?
You had mentioned a math club or students were, I didn't know if that was a classroom time thing or an enrichment class or?
No, it's actually it's a pilot, we try it on the carpool time. Carpool is a kind of a tricky time, you know, because some of the students are leaving at 3 or 5, others are staying until 6. So we try to manage different types of approach during this time of carpool. So we pilot a small time with that. We would like to expand it as part of a real process, a thoughtful process around math. So math club, like maybe even a space where we could learn math, and so we are in a process of yeah.
So what exists right now?
Right now, Maggie kind of gives some guidelines we can explain.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of around our differentiation approach. So we started in some grade levels just with students that needed more challenge in math, and then now what we're doing is we're setting up a process specifically in 4th grade, and we're looking at what other grade levels, like a time once a week when there's differentiation for everyone. Because there's a whole class lesson and the curriculum that we're going through every day, but we also want to provide an opportunity during the week for students that may have missed some of the concepts along the way or need more reinforcement in some concepts or some remediation to receive support in math. And then we also want to challenge those students where the regular curriculum is kind of maybe easier for them and they're ready to do more. So we want to provide like a time in the week when we can have those differentiation opportunities to either provide some more support, and then also introduce like math games. This is something that already exists in a lot of classrooms, but that's another opportunity where we can do it. So they can do independent, fun activities where they get to apply their skills to something really engaging. Yes.
So I had sort of an issue come up where I actually found on YouTube some videos that explain this math that I don't understand, I would, but I ran right directly through a foul of my son's obsession with fairness, and he got kind of upset. He said, "Mom, you can't, that's not fair, that's cheating, you're looking at the video, or showing me the video." So I just had this conflict happening in our home about how much help he can get and I can get from the videos.
Well, we'll make sure to send that message out to the students that all those resources are helpful. But I do want to direct you guys to the videos that I think are, most aligned with what we're doing. And besides the Zern ones, there's also another link I'm going to send to all our current families. There's a lot of videos by Dwayne Haybecker, and he's kind of the Eureka Math guru. He has, for every single grade level and every single lesson, videotaped himself going through the whole problem set and explaining, how to do it and how it works. He's amazing, and we were very lucky because he's a local person, he's in Merced, so a couple hours away, and he came and did a training with us for the whole day at the beginning of this school year in August. He's known all over the country as being one of the professional developers. He didn't write the curriculum at all, but one of the teachers that really leapt on, and he has a whole website just, for teachers that are teaching Eureka Math with games and the videos and accompaniment and resources. So, but I can direct you guys to those resources too, and obviously the message is it's not cheating. The more times we hear something, the more languages we hear it in, somebody explaining it a different way, it all makes sense. Before I talk about balanced literacy, maybe you want to show the rest of your. Were there other things about math? Sorry, I thought.
I just had two hopefully quick things. One, I just wanted to reinforce that the kids need to hear the fairness lesson from the teachers, because oftentimes it does not have any authority coming from their mom.
Right.
And I'm sure that my daughter would have exactly the same reaction. Two, I just wanted to say hats off to you. This is awesome. I've watched Zern. It's very intuitive. I love it. I think it's super cool. And just as a college teacher, I love the idea of getting it really, really embedded in their minds now that you need to have an array of strategies to draw on, because I see students all the time who hit a wall, they try one thing, it doesn't work, and then they're done. So even just on a really meta level, it's really cool. So anyway, awesome job.
Thank you so much. So let's show some other examples of.
This is writing. Maybe you can talk also about the Reader's Writer workshop.
Yes, I will. Yeah.
So this is a realistic fiction from 4th grade a few weeks ago. And what they do, as you see, the introduction was in French, and then you have some languages that switch, so English or French. So basically, it's bilingual. We really have this bilingual approach around the writing. So when we have a big project, all the writing projects are done bilingually, and it's something that the students can really understand well, because the bridge between languages, so they have the ideas, and then they can come up with the ideas into 2 different languages. And the teachers harmonize, and when they work on that, they usually open the partition, and they have these different group settings around that, and they use the Reader's Writer workshop.
Yeah. So in the balanced literacy approach, in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we use this concept of Readers and Writers Workshop, and the base of the mini lessons and the what we're teaching them in reading and writing comes from Teachers College in Columbia University in New York, Lucy Calkins, and a lot of schools use that as our base. But sometimes we don't use her modules, we use other modules. The most important thing that we're doing now that we didn't do several years ago is that we're doing all of the reading and writing units bilingually. So again, again, it makes more sense. For instance, they're doing realistic fiction here in 4th grade for the first unit, and so instead of learning to write some genre with the French teacher, or filling in the blank or something, and then over here we're doing creative writing and stories, it's the same. So the mini lessons of how we write a realistic fiction story, they learn how to use descriptive language and how to balance that with action and balance that with dialogue, and really higher level, what we would think of higher level work that students do later, but they apply it at their own level. And then of course they're still learning through the writing process of drafting, revising, editing, and publishing a piece. They're learning about grammar and spelling and vocabulary and how to make their writing richer. So like for instance, at the first module of 3rd grade, they did personal narrative. They did realistic fiction right now. In 5th grade, they're doing fantasy. And so they're learning about how to write fantasy stories and what are the elements of fantasy, like symbolism or a magic object or things like that. And then they're applying it in both French and in English in slightly different ways. So they're writing a fantasy story in English in 5th grade, and then they're using their fantasy story and they're excerpting a scene, and they're writing like a scenette or a theater piece in French right now. So in 5th grade. So everything is aligned, and that's the same with the Reader's Workshop as well. So right now 4th graders are learning about informative text and how do we read documentaries different than we read fiction, and what are the clues and signals that help us do that. And so when they're in English for 1 week or when they're in French the 1 week, they're picking up on the same mini lessons, but then they're applying that learning to both languages. And the other element that's really important about balanced literacy, still in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, is the differentiation piece. So students are assessed at the beginning and end of the year, and then ongoing as needed at their reading level in French and in English. And their reading level, not just meaning grade level, but more discrete levels. Their levels go from like A to Z, for example. A would be a very beginning reader, and Z would be what we consider like a fluent 8th grade reader. And so we are able to target both their independent reading and their small group reading to texts that are appropriate for them. So if students read texts that are always too difficult for them, they don't advance, or if they're always too easy. So we do have common texts, common books and stories that we look at together as a class. Usually those are read aloud by the teacher to the students, so it doesn't matter if it's too easy or too hard for a student. We use that text to talk about like comprehension strategies, like asking questions or connecting to characters or inferencing. And then they apply those strategies that they learn in that whole group text that they looked at together as a class into texts that are really adapted to their level, whether that's easy or harder than what grade level expectations will be. And what we find is that our school echoes the research on bilingualism, is that some students in 1st and 2nd grade will take a little bit more time to get to grade level standards in reading because they're mastering the reading process in 2 languages. But our 4th and 5th graders, the vast majority are reading above grade level in both English and in French. So we have, very, very high outcomes for our program. And by doing the biliteracy, we find that we can use the strengths of both languages, even the phonetics piece, and we look very hard at like what phonics rules are the same in French and English, which ones are different. We compare and contrast the grammar pieces, really to help students make sense of the 2 languages that they're using.
Thank you.
Because I know my daughter's English level, like you were saying, the letter, is there the same? Because her reading is not the same in English and French at this point. Does she have a different letter?
Yes. So
Okay,
we test them in both French and English, and we've adopted an evaluation system that actually comes out of Canada that has these discrete levels.
So her teachers have that information?
Yes.
So I should talk to them?
Yes.
Okay.
And what they do with that information is they use that to put her in a small group setting with other students that might have a similar level. They also use that to help direct her to choosing independent books at her level. And although we don't necessarily get the parents too involved in the level, it's okay to ask and it's okay to know, because the other resource that you have, especially for the French, is in the library. When you first walk in the library on your right hand side, you will see a lot of French books that have stickers with the levels on them. And you as a parent can kind of use that to gauge things, right? Like you see this F is a lot easier than S, for instance. But if you want to ask your child's teacher a little bit more information about their exact level in French, that could help you choose books from the library that are at their level, that they're at their independent level.
Thank you. This is, for example, sorry for the picture. It's in French, so usually same thing in French in grade 4. This is a grade 4, so they really write. This is more about kind of dissecting the language and the homophones, so the difference between A and A, so is and and. And usually what they will do is they will also kind of compare and contrast with the English language. And of course the dictée at the bottom. So this is for grade 4. Grade 5, you will see that in math it gets a little harder with all the decimals, the fractions, and how we really try to understand the different systems. What I like about that also is that we have the American measures, but also the European one. So it's kind of also compare and contrast because they are navigating in both systems, and sometimes it's really difficult. Myself, I have also some troubles with that, and so my son in 5th grade teaches me it. So it's really a nice approach, an harmonized approach around that. This is in grade 5 what they were doing. So in grade 5 there's a big project around the Pilgrims called the Pilgrims Project, led by Luc Dormy. And so it's kind of a blend of social studies, writing, reading, and also experience around what happened. So it's just to give you a sense of, by the beginning of, so this was written in November of grade 5. So the writing is getting really more complex, and they use different ideas to kind of develop and have a structure writing. So it's very good. This is also in grade 5. So now same thing. We always ask them to draw and to do a sentence. To draw, why? Because it's kind of explaining their reasoning. Explaining the reasoning is really important. It's really the sense of, okay, how did you come up with this solution? So, and then they kind of share all their experience. They can be in group also when they do that, so it's really nice. We work a lot around areas and perimeters through the multiplication and division. It kind of, everything is blended into that, so they really understand the concepts. And this is a short movie.
The iPad is really a tool for research, and also a place where they write the research paper that they then share with me, and I can access their work as well. I then can leave comments on their papers, and they can go edit their draft and improve on it.
Table 4 will get the iPads when table 4 is done. Table 3, and then table 2, and then table 1.
For the last few months, we've been working on a project around the American Revolution. They pick a topic that they then research and become experts about, and then they teach the rest of the class about that particular event or person or battle, and they get then to do a keynote presentation on the iPads, and yeah, they become the teacher, so to speak. Yeah.
Now it's time for a quiz. See how much you've learned. Sometimes you can find things in the internet that you can't find in books, or vice versa. It's not just, I'm going on the iPad just so I can play games and do things that'll distract me. You can do much more than that.
By Thursday, you're still working on your keynote, try to finish your keynote.
I think it makes them a more responsible learner because they're actively engaged in their learning. They're not just recipients of me just pouring knowledge into them. They actually have to actively be involved in their learning. So in some ways it makes my job easier. You give them parameters, and then you sort of roll out the project, and then it's on them to really dig through the materials and sort out what's necessary and not. I find them to be a lot more engaged when they have to figure it out. And they need to solve their own problems. They can make mistakes and then learn through them.